This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hi, Erika. How are you?
Doing great. How are you, Austin?
I'm fantastic. It's a Friday and it feels like it. That's what we love. But everything is changing so much in SEO, and I want to hear your perspective from TenSpeed. So tell me what you do at TenSpeed. And actually, I think it'd be interesting to hear how long you've been there.
Sure. I manage your organic growth strategy at TenSpeed. I lead the strategy team, so I'm making sure that all of the deliverables look fabulous before they go out the door. But my team is really like on the ground building the strategies. They're client facing, so they're running the show. I do have my own book of clients myself, but it's really like me supporting the team. And
Yeah.
I've been at TenSpeed for 2 years.
Okay, very good. And when you're talking about strategy, I'm curious because you've been in the industry for obviously longer than you've been at TenSpeed. What have you seen change the most in terms of like SEO and marketing when it comes to your role?
When it comes to my role, I think when I first started in SEO, going back like probably 7 or 8 years, the type of content I saw being published across competitor sites or just in general, like as I was browsing the web, a lot of people were landing darts outside of the dartboard and still ranking, writing content that was very irrelevant. I saw keyword stuffing, and a lot of that has obviously changed over the years. So really the focus now is on precision, being like very tightly aligned with your ICP, with jobs to be done, with your industry, with the pain points, and being as relevant as possible. So you're meeting the user along the journey in all the ways that they're going to interact with your brand.
We just did, I just had a guest on earlier this week, and she was talking about the foundations of brand, where she was saying brand is not just like the logo and veil that you put on top of the business, but it's actually at every touch point along the customer journey. You mentioned something in there, jobs to be done. Tell me a little bit more about how you go about that process and actually what it is.
Sure. So with jobs to be done, I'm thinking about my customer persona and what their day to day looks like when they sit down to work, whether that is their tech stack, whether that is their tasks, whether that's where they sit in the organization. And then I'm thinking about like within those buckets, like what are they doing? What's blocking them? Like what makes them go gray hairs? Where are they hitting snags? And where can this product plug in to create ease within their team, within the organization?
And so, I mean, I guess it brings up your clients are mostly B2B SaaS.
Yes.
Okay. So that makes a whole lot of sense where you're talking about tech stack. We're not talking about an e-com brand or anything like that. Right. Okay. So tell me a little bit more. How do you extract that? So you mentioned like you're thinking through the user journey, their challenges, their role, where they sit, like what they're dealing with on their screen. But then how do you, if you're marketing for a B2B SaaS company and you're not familiar with their user, how do you extract that information? Because it's not you.
Sure. So I start by getting really plugged in with the client and their team. I try to meet with someone in sales, see if I can get battle cards and understand what's being discussed. If I can watch a demo, that can give me pretty good insights into what pain points are being addressed. And then typically the content team will have cards. They'll have a deck related to the ICPs. And then beyond that, I'm doing my own research. Because sometimes what the client provides isn't in perfect alignment with what we need to produce. And it's on us to do that additional research and make sure that we're expanding upon like the materials that we have so that we're able to drive results.
So you're watching sales demos, which makes a whole lot of sense. I've been in business development and sales for quite some time. And what I found is, there's usually some sort of a structure to the way a demo call works. You have rapport building and then there's discovery, which I believe that's probably where a lot of the juice comes for where you want to write content and format your SEO strategy and understand keywords and everything is really in the discovery part where the salesperson is asking, what are your primary challenges, frustrations, and concerns? What have you tried before? What would this mean if it were solved? All of that kind of stuff. And then you mentioned something like battle cards. What are those?
Those are like us versus the competition.
Okay.
And if you ask a salesperson, they'll typically have some form of it. And that gives me really good insights into what type of pieces to prioritize if I'm looking at the bottom of the funnel.
Mm, okay. Us versus the competition. I like that. Is that something that you had brought to the organization, or were they kind of doing that before you got there?
That's something I've always thought about working in.
Okay.
So, how are we differentiating ourselves? How are we speaking to our strengths? And how are we able to show that we're able to better serve this challenge versus the
Mm.
competition?
So you've like, where did you learn? Let me ask you this, right? So you've been in SEO for 7, 8 years. Where did you feel like you experienced the greatest learning? Like, where do you feel like you accelerated the most?
Interestingly, nothing to do with B2B SaaS.
Really?
Only has a food blog, Ethnic Spoon, and that's where I learned how to do SEO.
Okay.
Like, it was ethnic recipes from around the world, so it's very niche, but, like, within that niche, there are people writing for recipes in just specific countries, so I was doing analyses of their
Mm.
sites and, like, how can we present this recipe in a way that's much easier and more approachable? What coverage gaps, like, do we need to address so we're consistently showing up if someone types in French recipes?
You said that's a family business, Ethnic Spoon?
Yeah, it's a family business.
Okay, got it. Well, it seems to have had a big impact on you. I saw that just within the last week you posted on Instagram where you were looking for a recipe, but you could only find the ingredients. And then you used AI, Claude Code, to actually put the recipe together. How else are you using AI in your daily life?
I'm planning a trip right now and I'm using Claude to help me research all of my locations. I mean, I wrote up a prompt, explained what type of interests I have, how
Mm,
old I am, like what my travel group looks like, what our interests are, and asking, can you make recommendations for restaurants, recommendations for places to stay, hotels? So Claude is doing all of my trip planning and it's a very big lift.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Gosh, where are you going?
Amsterdam.
So cool. Heck yeah. I have a couple buddies over there. Wish I could go back. It's been quite a while. Yeah, a lot of fun. Okay, so obviously personal, amazing trip planning is like a burden that nobody else wants to do. It's kind of like link building. Like it's super important, but like nobody wants to do it because it's a hassle to do. What about what about in 10 speed?
In TenSpeed, I'm using it more as a collaboration partner. So, for example, if I'm trying to learn as much as I can about a client or an industry, I can use it to ideate on topics. I can use it to dive a little bit deeper into what jobs to be done look like for a specific role. I could ask it for a job description for a specific role, and that will help me get more insight into what this person may be thinking about in their day to day.
Okay. All right. That's cool. How has thinking about content strategy changed, particularly with AI overviews and LLMs? Like you mentioned, clicks are sliding, and that's probably because people are finding answers elsewhere without going to a website. So I'm curious how you're still capturing attention and how you're thinking about writing content that actually draws people to the website and then gets them to engage with the client.
Sure. I'm still focused on core fundamentals, honestly.
Mm,
I think your site needs to have content that's very tightly aligned to your ICP. The user journey needs to be as easy and frictionless as possible. You need clean
mm,
navigation, you need very clear messaging, and you
mhm.
need great technical health. And all of those like true fundamentals, in addition to making sure that your content is organized to be written for humans, easily digestible, is what's going to help you in AI search.
Yeah, I love that. It's like AI search is not dying, it's just changing, right? Is shifting around, but still the fundamentals are pretty much if you have solid fundamentals, you're probably gonna have an easier time winning in AI overviews. How do you think about, I guess, collaboration? Like, do you have other collaborators? I mean, like, you have in SEO, we have the on-site, we have the technical, and then we have off-site authority. Tell me a little bit about the off-site authority section.
Sure, that's something I'm a bit less involved with. That's
Okay.
handled by someone else on our team.
Okay. Cool. Got it. So you're more of like the other stuff.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Got it. Let me ask you this then. What is I guess what brings you alive these days? Like in your
I really enjoy the ICP research.
yeah?
And then expanding on the ICP research to build out a strategy.
Okay. The ICP research, like you mentioned, you're using Claude as a collaborator. You're asking the jobs to be done questions. You're looking at job descriptions. And then how much of the content are you actually physically writing?
I'm not physically writing the content, but I am building out the strategy. We have other people that are handling the writing of the content.
So you're just like doing the research then.
Yes, research
Okay.
and part execution, but also client facing as well.
Okay. What are clients saying these days? Because I would imagine they're probably asking about AI. They're like, what is this thing? How do we leverage it? How do we maximize it? What sort of trends are you getting from clients?
Very similar to what you just said. There's
Yeah.
concerns around visibility. There's concerns around, are we doing enough to leverage it? Are we doing enough to maximize our visibility? Why is visibility increased or decreased? So that's another layer of research determining if there's something that we need to address on site or if it's related to a model update that's changing how the results appear.
Tell me a little bit more about the helpful content updates.
I think the helpful content updates were always like on the horizon. Like I was speaking to earlier, like throwing the darts outside of the dartboard and
Hmm.
being able to still rank for something that wasn't relevant. I knew that that was not sustainable
Mm.
and that it could not continue for too much longer. So when that update happened, I believe in 2023, I was I was okay because I had not been throwing darts outside the dartboard with my clients.
Helpful content. Google released another update in October, I believe, which was expounding upon that. And really it was for combating AI. They're always looking for unique content that is not duplicated. They didn't say like you're not allowed to use AI, but they did say like we can tell if you're using AI because all the AIs follow the same pattern. And if we identify those patterns, we're less likely to give you visibility on SERPs because it's not useful. It's not helpful, right? People can find that anywhere. How do you inject that personal spin? You mentioned that you have like, some research, you're watching some sales calls. Is there anything else that you're doing to really bring a brand to life through the writing?
I'm staying very tightly connected with my clients and what's happening in their company and what's happening in their industry.
Okay. And you do that through calls?
I do that through calls, through Slack messages.
Do you have like a process or anything? Or is it just kind of like just day after day?
It's more of a day after day thing, just
Yeah.
to make sure that you keep everything fresh, you stay connected so that there isn't suddenly some big update that you missed because you didn't continue that communication cadence.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. So we have content on the site. You've been working with a client for, let's say, a year or whatever. How do you think about content refresh strategies where that sort of freshness is more important than volume?
Sure. I think with content freshness, it's similar to what I was speaking to with fundamentals. It's about precision. So when it comes to your evergreen content, that's important to keep refreshed so that it stays visible in the organic search, so it stays visible in LLMs. When it comes to pieces that are a bit, I guess, less evergreen, if we're speaking about product updates, company updates, those aren't typically the pieces that are going to move the needle for the long term. You really have to focus on what's going to be core to driving conversions, driving visibility, and driving high intent traffic.
Mm, hmm. Okay, cool. So tell me a little bit more about when we shift over to the team. You mentioned you have a team.
Mhm.
They're amazing. They handle a lot of the strategy and the execution, right? And you can kind of guide and tell them like, you're on the cutting edge. You have the vision. You're talking with the C-suite or the executives, right? Tell me what kind of like SOPs that you're building and how you help your team level up.
Sure. So I was actually a teacher for 4 years in
Mm,
Asia. I taught ESL. So I take a lot of like a teacher minded approach to
hmm.
building SOPs. So I'm thinking about engaging multiple learning styles, whether that's audio, whether that's visual, whether that's kinesthetic, so that all of the SOPs I build for my team that support them on their day to day tasks are in a style that they're able to absorb. And this helps build confidence. And then, in addition to that, I use my one on ones to assess understanding. It gives me that feedback loop for what I need to build. And in addition, like, the one-on-ones are also problem-solving time. So
Mm.
as you're problem-solving with your team, you're able to help lead them to the answer. They usually already have the answer, but they might not be too sure that it's the
Yeah.
correct answer. So by leading them there and showing them that it is correct, you're able to build up that confidence. And I've noticed by taking all of these steps, there's a big difference in execution quality.
Yeah. You have weekly one-on-ones?
Yes, weekly one-on-ones.
Okay, weekly. And then, I think it's pretty well known that there's even a meme about it. It's like this meeting could have been an email. How do you avoid your meetings? Like, how do you avoid meetings that could have been an email?
Well, like the one-on-ones are important, but I would say that like we will try to use other like async methods
Hmm.
to stay in communication, and it really depends on the level of urgency. I really like to keep my team focused on what they're doing. I don't want them to be context switching too much.
Mm.
So if I'm able to send them a quick screen recording, if I'm able to send them a voice note, if I'm able to type up a message, it's better if it's not super urgent so that I know that the information will be received and it can be tackled like when they're able to.
Hmm. So, in developing your team, where do you start skill building when SEO is changing so quickly?
I start with assessing understanding. I try to make sure that like understand where the baseline is for each person on my team. And then by knowing their baseline, knowing what they understand, continue to ask curious questions to see where I need to take them next. This is another like teacher brain thing. So if
Hmm.
I'm picturing the ladder, I know which rung of the ladder where like their knowledge is, their comprehension is. So I'm not going to show them the top rung of the ladder immediately. I'm going to show them
Mm.
maybe two up and show them the steps they need to take to get there. And then try to make it actionable, try to make it bite sized so that I'm building confidence along the way and not letting them feel like not making them feel overwhelmed, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that is key. Man, I love that you said you're not showing them the top rung of the ladder right away because it can get overwhelming, too deep, too
Mhm.
fast, right? Yeah, definitely. And then along with the teacher, your teacher background, your teaching experience, obviously state testing is every teacher's nightmare. My
Mhm.
sister's a teacher in Florida, funny enough, and I get to hear all about it anytime we connect over the phone. So, is there some sort of like, obviously, the work is in itself a grading mechanism, but is there anything once you assess their understanding of where things are, like, do you have some sort of like a learning track or continuing education in some way that you go out and find and then say, hey, this is great. I think we should watch this masterclass or this course or read this article. How are you going about systematically developing your team?
I'm doing exactly that. Like, I have a bank of YouTube resources. There's a couple of people on Instagram that I like for like executive comms or leadership. And there's a couple of different articles that I'll send over. And then there's also Slack communities in addition to that. So it
Mm.
touches on all of the different learning styles to make sure that anything that I deliver them for their growth, they're going to be able to absorb and build confidence.
What are some of your favorite like Slack communities or YouTube channels? Where can I learn what Erica is learning?
Sure. One of my favorite YouTube channels for analytics is Analytics Mania. And then for executive comms, Dr. Chris Lee is my favorite. And as far as Slack communities, I'm part of Women in Tech SEO.
Women in Tech SEO. That's awesome. That's what we're finding too is I guess someone once told me the age of the sage on stage is over. Now it's all about tight knit communities, people who trust each other. And, if you go to like a conference, it's wonderful because you can see the forefront of the industry, people who
Mhm.
are the top rung of the ladder, if you will. But where I'm finding a lot of value too is where I'm in communities with my peers and I can understand like people who are 1, 2, maybe even 3 steps ahead of me, but they recently solved challenges that I'm going through and it helps me develop as a person, as a leader, and as a marketer because it's like I can comprehend it. I think the distance between learning and application is really one of the most important aspects of growing as a person, right? If
Mhm.
you learn something, but the distance between that and applying it, like there's still a couple levels that you need to grow. Yeah, it's fun. Like you can stroke your own ego by hearing that sort of information, but it's not very applicable to you,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Where can we find out more about you, Erika? How should we reach out to you? And then where can we find TenSpeed?
Sure, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And then for TenSpeed, you can visit our website.
Is it 10speed.com?
10speed.io. We also have a podcast, 10speed
Mm,
Sessions, that's on Spotify.
10speed sessions. Nice. Okay, very cool. Well, Erika, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Let us continue to enjoy our Friday.
Awesome.